Hey, Barry.
Yeah, we did chops. Chops and Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Brussels sprouts. I can eat them.
You know what? I hated them growing up. I love them. Absolutely love them.
There's not much I won't eat. My mother was French. When I last time we went to France, when she was alive, we used to.
Oh yeah, I can't do scouts. And I can't do caviar. That doesn't.
All right, Mayor, we've got 6:45 if you're ready to start.
We'll get started right now. Let's open the council work session.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got some new faces in the room, so I'll go over how we do the beginning of the meeting. Just as a reminder to everyone, we are recording the meeting, so it's being live streamed. So if you're making public comments, be careful with what you say, and if you're making snide remarks in the audience, keep it to a minimum so we don't pick it up here for everybody to hear. So we will go over the consent agenda items in the work session and then go to the regular meeting. So the first two items on the consent agenda are minutes from meetings that you had in July. The minutes from the July 1st regular meeting, that's item number 1. The minutes from the special meeting on July 22nd, item number 2. Item 3 is action that comes to you with the recommendation from the Water and Sewer Committee. If you'll, on page 47, you'll see that now that we've come out of the droughts of the early part of the decade, Gaston County Environmental Health has been issuing permits for private irrigation wells with certain standards or setbacks and other requirements for them. But we have had some interest in people getting private wells for irrigation or non-domestic use, and the city offers an irrigation T-tap, and it's about a $1,500 T-tap charge to get an irrigation T-tap so that you don't get charged for your sewer use for any water that's used for irrigation or for non-domestic uses. So we're anticipating some folks will cost out whether it's more cost effective to keep an irrigation T-tap or to dig a private well, because those are very expensive. So if they make the decision to abandon their irrigation T-tap and go to a private well, we need to have some kind of fee to recoup the cost that the city incurs from removing that T-tap. And so at the Water and Sewer Committee, our Utilities Director, Chuck Flowers, presented a cost of $1,000, and that's basically the same cost it takes to install the T-tap, just without the actual T-tap and the special meter for that. So the Water and Sewer Committee unanimously recommended approval of that amendment to the fee schedule to add that $1,000 charge to remove an irrigation T-tap. Item 4 on the consent agenda is a municipal agreement with NCDOT for the Belmont Rail Trail. And as I've emailed the council on our latest adventures on the rail trail project, and you may have read in the Gaston Gazette today, we've run into some issues. We've run into some timing issues with the federal government rescinding some funding for CMAQ projects, especially special federally funded projects across the state and across the country. This project would have had this money rescinded back to the federal government if it was not obligated by the end of September. So we've been working with NCDOT. We're not ready for construction. As we finish the engineering for the project, we identified 9 properties that need additional right-of-way from and some temporary construction easements. There are also some major Duke Energy utilities that are in the way of the project, and that right-of-way work and the utility relocation work has to happen prior to construction. So it's impossible to get that done before the end of September. So we're working with the Board of Transportation and the local NCDOT office to convert our construction funding to right-of-way acquisition funding and utility relocation funding so that we don't lose that funding.
Right.
We can keep going with the next step in the project. And by keeping the DOT funding for this, the NCDOT will pay for 80% of the cost, and we just pay the 20% local match. And so the enclosed municipal agreement goes through our responsibilities and NCDOT's responsibilities for this project. This is also going to the Board of Transportation for their August meeting. Item 5 on the consent agenda is an ordinance authorizing the sale, possession, and consumption of alcoholic beverages in Stowe Park for what we're going to call the Thursday Night Pops concert series. This is similar to the ordinances you've done for Friday Night Live and other events within the parks and on the street. This is something that the Main Street program is working on. They've had a party in the park in the fall that has not been as well attended as they had hoped. The Parks and Recreation Department offered concerts in the park last summer. They didn't get the attendance that they anticipated and hoped for. Theirs was on a Wednesday in the middle of summer, and it was hot. Great music, just hot, and on a Wednesday. And so the Main Street program's party in the park was on a Saturday evening and just wasn't well attended. So they're wanting to kind of combine those and do it on a Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. In September and October. So hopefully the weather will cooperate, and it's just a good opportunity for people to come downtown, get a bite to eat, listen to some music. And so we're going to work with one of our local vendors to sell beer and wine in the park so that you can get a drink while you're having dinner and listen to the music.
Is that going to fall under Parks and Rec or the Main Street?
Main Street program.
Okay.
So that is an ordinance to allow for the alcohol sales in the park at those dates. The next item also is something that you're used to seeing. It's an ordinance to do street closures with NCDOT for a city event. We had last year the Santa Hustle, which was a 5K and marathon in December. I think it was a Saturday before Christmas last year. We have been working with Gaston County Travel and Tourism on bringing that back, and I'd like to turn it over to Brandon Black with Gaston County Travel and Tourism and let him give you kind of an update on the Santa Hustle. This is the largest footprint of an event that we have, being a half marathon. It's both in Belmont and in Cramerton, and so I wanted him to give you an idea before you made the decision to whether or not we want to have this again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This isn't just the largest event, maybe in Belmont, but it's probably the largest event we have in the county. Last year we had close to 1,200 people that raced in it. I brought a couple of notes. I changed up some of my slides, but if you guys don't know me, I'm Brandon Black, the Sales and Marketing Manager with Gaston County Travel and Tourism. So basically what I do is, what I'm doing tonight, I'm just presenting this event, trying to get these roads closed so we can, have a great event, put heads in beds, and just create a good economic impact. So on my next slide here,
You just press down on there.
press down. Okay, on the next slide. So this was provided to me by Aaron Del Mar, who runs the Santa Hustle Race Series. I just want to let you guys know that these are his numbers that he uses. This isn't on behalf of me and my department. This is what he would interpret. This is kind of just like an interpretation of his race and the economic impact that it had last year. So we had about 1,250 participants. You can see it just has a little gender breakdown, an age breakdown. He estimates about 150 rooms were consumed, which is really good because that's how my department is funded. And the runner geography, we have about 94% from North Carolina, but I have a better breakdown on in a couple of slides, so I can show you guys. So this is what he would estimate the economic impact as being. It's close to $900,000. Take that for what it's worth. I mean, he's not just making this up. He uses Destination's International Economic Impact Calculator. So there's very complex math that goes behind it. And I have a math degree, and I can't tell you how it works. But yeah, I mean, it was a great event. I mean, tons of people. I wish I could show you guys the video. If you haven't seen it, I could send it to Adrian. He can forward it to you guys.
Yeah.
So this is the breakdown I was talking about. So the state of North Carolina defines a visitor as someone that comes from more than 50 miles away. So about 26% of the people that came were considered visitors, even though they're coming from North Carolina. That's fine. Because those are the people that are going to spend money that really make an economic impact. It's great that people from Gaston County and Belmont participate. That's what we want. I don't want everybody that participates in this to be from Belmont. I want people coming from all over the country. And in the next slide, you can see exactly where they came from. But what's interesting here is we did have 11% of the people that participated in this event reside in the city of Belmont. So this is a breakdown of who all came and ran in this event. We had 26 states. There was somebody from Canada, somebody from Brazil and South Korea, and there were 2 people that traveled all the way from Nome, Alaska. I don't know why, but
From the North Pole.
I mean, they are from the North Pole.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, yeah, it was,
That's a lot of people.
we had close to 1,100, 1,200 people that raced in this thing, and Mike, my boss, and I, we were about 6 months beforehand. Aaron, the race director, was like, "We'll get 1,000 people." I was like, "No, we're not getting 1,000 people. Year one, 3 days before Christmas."
Yeah.
I was like, "I'll be happy if we get 500, 600 people." And sure enough, he pulled it off, and we're expecting to grow that even more this year to get, I don't know, 2,000 or so, I would say. We may get to a point in the future where we have to cap the number of registrants. I don't know what our streets can handle, but out of those 1,200, I think 500 did the half marathon, so it was almost a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great event. So this is a course. This is good. So this is the 5K. Is this the 5K course? Yes, this is the 5K course. It's actually pretty much the same thing as the half marathon course, which is in this slide here. So last year, it went okay. You think it went okay?
It did.
But we had to cross county once, and we went down near Riverside Marina, and then we had to cross it again. And that was a pain, and understandably so. So me and Cassidy and Sergeant Buchanan's been working on this since December 23rd of last year. I was like, do what you got to do. This is the city of Belmont's event. Let's make it easier on the city. I don't want to shut down the city just to have a race. So we're not crossing Keener at all this year. We're just going to run down Keener. We're going to take one lane of Keener.
Yeah.
That'll make a big difference in as far as traffic jams that we had last year.
You gonna make a Hallmark movie out of this thing?
Good.
Put it on the sound.
I could do that. Yeah,
As long as you get Mike to run, right?
Yeah, Mike. Right. Yeah, ran. But probably,
Yeah.
That's the last slide there. So I'm free to answer any questions if you have any.
Did you talk with Travel and Tourism or the Hampton Inn to see how many heads and beds they actually got?
Yeah, well, it's just hard to know unless the hotel staff is asking. Then it's almost impossible to get an actual number. We can set up room blocks all day, but I don't know if you have if you've ever played travel ball or you ever went to an event. You're not always booking in a room block,
Right.
even though you're there. So no, I don't have an actual number on heads and beds. I know Reba from the Holiday Inn in Mount Holly, she said they had like 15, 16 rooms, but that was people that they knew of being there. So I mean, the number could be way up.
There's good potential for a lot of rooms to fill up as far as.
Yeah, and Aaron's staff, the race director's staff took 15 rooms themselves at Hampton.
Yeah.
For two, 3 nights. So I mean, there's a staff room block right there.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a great event. It was the best event we had last year. It'll probably be the best event we have this year.
Good.
Is there any risk of oversaturation though? Because I saw where Charlotte's having it, Huntersville's having the Santa Hustle. Is there a point of where there's too many of them going on and people are choosing where they?
Yeah, not right now. I don't think so. I think this is pretty unique. He's got a national footprint, obviously, with how many people came and from where they're coming. So he's got a database of thousands of runners.
I can tell you, it's the only event I participated, running event or walking event that I participated in last year. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't. I just wanted to watch last year, and so that's what I did.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was great to watch.
Where's the race gonna start?
It starts like 8 a.m.
Well, not what time, where?
Where? Next to Stowe Park.
It's
Right
a
out-
Stowe Park,
right
okay.
out front of Stowe
All right.
Park, yeah.
What's the duration normally, start to finish, for your slowest runners?
I think last year I looked at the registration list and their times posted. I think there was a few that averaged like a 17-minute mile. He tries to keep it 15 and under.
Yeah.
You know,
But I mean, total time,
total time
duration.
it took what, 12:30? So about four and a half hours.
Was there any negative impact having the streets closed or blocked off? for that
Every
length of
time we
time?
close the street, we get complaints.
Anything tangible? I mean, any problems?
So to Brandon's point, closing down Keener Boulevard intersection at Catawba Street was an issue. And just because of the footprint of this, every way you wanted to go to get out, you couldn't, because it was closed. So that's the one thing the most important thing that we worked on with the promoter was changing that route to avoid those issues again.
Yeah, Brandon, what's the date on that?
It's the 14th.
14th, December 14th.
Yes.
And it was the Saturday before Christmas last year, and so we've asked them to push it up to the
I think that's a lot
middle of
better,
December.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll help registration numbers too. I think that'll get those up.
Yeah. They went by my house last year too, but I lived with it.
Yeah, you
It's
like
okay.
it?
I had a good time,
Yeah,
a good time.
set up a police station out there.
And there's the kind of people that root you on, yeah.
Any other questions for Brandon?
Yeah.
Thank you. Then item 7 on the consent agenda is updates to 4 different job descriptions. 2 of them come from the operational efficiency assessment, and that is, if you recall, during the budget, we talked about moving the Parks and Rec Community Events Coordinator position to the Planning Department to work with the Main Street Director. So we've done that in the budget and the position classification, but we just have not updated the actual job descriptions to reflect that position reports, instead of reporting to the Parks and Rec Director, now reports to the Downtown Director. And then updating the Downtown Director position to say that the Downtown Director supervises the Community Events Coordinator. So to your question earlier about the concerts and who's doing them, it's the Main Street program, but it's the same staffs doing those.
Adrian, does Park and Rec, do they put on any events anymore, or is everything umbrellaed now under the Main Street program?
It'll be umbrella under the Main Street program. So the Garibaldi Fest, the Red, White, and Belmont Boot Fest will all be, it'll look like it always has. It'll just be done by the Main Street program.
Yeah.
Does that mean the portion of their budget that's allocated toward these events will now be transferred over to the Main Street program?
Yes. Same budget. So this year's budget, we split the programs and the events that Parks and Rec will continue doing, like the summer programs for kids, the senior programs will still be done by Parks and Rec, so that's still in the Parks and Rec budget. But the budget for the big community events was transferred over to the Main Street program.
Why are we doing that? I mean, Park and Rec has always run these events. Why are we putting them under the Main Street program?
Just for better coordination and consolidation of really the overhead and planning of the events. What we've had since we've had the Main Street program is you have these events downtown, and whether they're concerts or community events or art crawls or whatever downtown, it's always a question of who's the lead on it. And so we've got 2 different groups doing it. We've got Parks and Rec and you've got planning doing these events, and they do it separately. In the last couple of years, they've coordinated better.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of internal back and forth and getting approval from different department heads. So that was one of the things that the operational efficiency assessment picked up on right away was you need to have one group doing all your events. It also allows for the events to leverage some of the volunteers that the Main Street Board already has. We saw that at Red, White, and Belmont. So it's just one group, one point of contact for people that want to host events.
A lot more streamlined that way.
It's more streamlined,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep. Thank you, Adrian.
And then also on the job description changes, we want to change the title, the city clerk, from city clerk administrative assistant to city clerk public information officer, to reflect the duties that she's currently doing. This is also found in your operational efficiency assessment. We don't have a public information officer, and generally when a reporter wants information, they contact me. But when there's just general information that needs to go out, the clerk has been doing that, is doing our social media, doing our internal communications. So we can't afford to have a full-time public information officer, so we'll just tack that on to the clerk's duties. So that you see there's an updated job description to reflect the duties that she's already doing. And then also, finally, on job description changes, the new technology services coordinator position. The only thing we want to change on that, yeah, that's currently Seth Norkett, who you'll hear from later tonight. That position was created within the finance department, and so our finance director is his supervisor. And that's just one of those legacy decisions. Barry asked Michelle and I to take over IT 7 years ago, and so we've just had it, and it's neither one of our areas of expertise. So with everything else that the finance department has going on right now, we thought taking IT from finance and putting it under the clerk made the most sense. So we're just asking that you change the technology services coordinator job description from reporting to the finance director to reporting to the city clerk. And the clerk and the finance director have worked all this out and presented it to me, and it made sense. Michelle's got a lot on her plate, and she doesn't need to worry about phone contracts and all the different software providers, so we want to take that to the city clerk. So the duties of those positions, that position's not going to change, it's just who he reports to. And then finally on the consent agenda, and thanks for bearing with us, this is longer than it normally takes on consent agenda. Also approved on our 5-year CIP and approved in the budget is funding for a replacement fire truck and our normal vehicle, police department vehicle rotation replacement, so we can keep up with our police vehicles. You approved funding for a fire truck either last year or the year before. That was delivered earlier this spring or summer. So now our oldest fire truck, I believe, Chief, is a 1996.
You're correct, sir.
So we've gotten 23 years out of it. So hopefully we'll get 23 years out of this new one. So it's time to replace that one. So Michelle, the finance director, sent out a request for proposals for financing for a $756,000 loan for the fire truck and police vehicles. She received 2 bids, one from U.S. Bancorp and one from Wells Fargo. U.S. Bancorp came in with the lowest interest rate of 2.198%. So interest rates are still low, which is good. So the debt service payment would be $82,218.19 this fiscal year. We had budgeted $179,500 for those 2 different purchases, so they obviously came in under budget. You'll see it's a 5-year loan. We'll make 1 payment this year. We'll make 2 payments the next several years, and our final payment will be in the fiscal year 24-25. So we'll just build that into our debt service rolling forward. So appreciate Michelle working those banks pretty hard for us to get a low interest rate on that. So that's all I've got on the consent agenda. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Adrian, I don't know if we do it now because I'm having blanking on process, but I want to make an amendment to the minutes, special meeting minutes. Do we do that now, or do we do that when we're in regular session?
When you go into regular session and want to approve the consent agenda, you would approve it with an amendment to the minutes, but I would, before we do that, I would share that with the council. So it's fine to go over what you want to change it to now.
Okay, yeah, well, one thing, reading the minutes, talking about the appointment to the ABC board, specifically Joe Stowe, it just reads that the council voted 4-1, and that I voted against Joe Stowe. But in that, I did state that I wasn't voting against Joe Stowe, I was voting against process. Council had adopted the process that we interview all applicants prior to selecting anyone for a board appointment. And in this case, we didn't do that, and that was my objection, is that we adhere to process. And I know Park said that we were council, that we could do any, basically do what we wanted. I don't subscribe to that. We've got process, and I feel that for transparency and just for leadership purposes for the city, we need to adhere to whatever process that we have. Also, looking at the efficiency study, I wanted to note there are no minutes for that. What we have in place of written record, there is no recording of the meeting. There are no written minutes. And what we're being asked to vote on in lieu of minutes is a slide presentation that we saw here that's been put in our packet. I'd hate to vote against the consent agenda on that. I don't know what we can do about it. We cannot vote on minutes and approve them which do not exist. I mean, that was a very contentious meeting at some point. Some points were brought out that I think the public would like to hear. I wish they were recorded because the efficiency study pointed out a lot of good and a lot of bad, but none of that has been captured for the public or for us for the future. So I don't know how we can deal with that, but in that instance, I will motion to correct the minutes regarding the ABC appointment. Can't support the consent agenda and approve minutes that don't exist. I can't approve a slideshow in lieu of minutes.
If I can, and certainly council approves the minutes, but I'll just respond to explaining why the minutes are what they are. So when the council votes on items, the clerk records who made the motion, who seconds the motion, and what the vote is. And if it's not unanimous, she puts who voted against it, or depending on the outcome of the vote. But we don't put why the person voted, how they voted. Just so what you see here on page 15 under regular agenda, being 1, is consistent with how we do the minutes.
Are you referring to the ABC?
The ABC, with your vote against appointing so that's just consistent with how the minutes are done. On the operational efficiency assessment section of the minutes, so that's on page 16, there was a lot presented in that, and so having the slides of the presentation would be more detailed than what we would typically put in the minutes. Now, there was a lot of discussion during that presentation. If I speak out of turn, Parks and Jamie, make sure you correct me on what this statutes require, just that you cover actions that are taken and the votes, the motions. There was no action coming out of here. It was just listen to the presentation, so there was no vote to be taken. And we do try to put in a little bit of the discussion, but it's not a detailed back and forth discussion. So the minutes are as presented, and the clerk did ask me about that, about including the presentation on there. And so I felt that the presentation captured what was presented better than just a couple paragraph summary of it. So I would suggest if the council wants to ask the clerk to go back and redo those minutes and have a lot of the discussion amongst the council members, and then you can do that, and we can do the minutes again next month, or you can just from as presented.
Well, let me just add, when I spoke to the clerk about that, because there really wasn't any manual minute taking per se that I perceived, that she had a good memory and a lot of it was in her head. So I felt that there was going to be something transcribed here on these minutes. Because let me ask you this: I mean, you've got, I don't know, is this available to the public? Do we have this on our website at all? The operational efficiency study?
I don't know if it's on the website, but it's certainly a public document. And the executive summary that we included in the agenda packet is on the website. And you and I have talked about how the clerk does the minutes, and I'm satisfied with how she does them.
Adrian, I think you also need to remember that there's an audio recording of everything that's been said. So if someone wanted to go back and listen to all the details, there certainly is that there.
It's just unfortunately for that particular meeting, I was supposed to flip the switch on here to turn the microphones on, and I failed to do that. So we recorded the meeting. There was just no audio because the mics weren't on, and that's just my mistake.
Well, I mean, just a note for May, The agenda is posted, there's a partial audio but no minutes. June, we have no minutes, no audio, only the agenda, and of course, this July 22nd meeting will have neither actual, real-time minutes or audio.
You have audio for the June meeting.
Yeah, so the clerk was able to go back and use the recording from her small device and put it into the system. So since you asked me about that last week, and so that's new information since we discussed it.
Okay.
In fact, I found that out today. So she's working on, so we've been recording meetings since I think September of 18. We've had 3 issues in a year. So the May meeting, we recorded a partial meeting, didn't get all of it. That's when we were having issues with the solstice, and we had to flip the breakers. So she's got what was not recorded by iCompass on her recorder, and she's having to splice those together. And that's just a time-consuming endeavor, but she's working on that. She'll get it done, because I know that's a big concern. The June meeting, her recording got everything, and she's put that on, and I guess has uploaded that into the YouTube system. So the June meeting is on there now.
Okay.
And we're learning this new technology, and we will do better.
And Adrian, for the benefit of the audience, we normally do not vary from our process, but we had 2 candidates who could not be available for interview for the ABC board, and we have still 1 position open. But if we had not approved Joe Stowe, we would have left that board temporarily without a chairman. So that is why we made that choice. We still have 2 other candidates to interview to look at with regard to the other position.
Right.
That will be filled once we do that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we got to take exception to,
That's up, if the council wants to amend the minutes, that's the pleasure of the council, or you can approve them as presented. But you do that in the...
Well, I'll tell you what, just to streamline the process, I'll withdraw my objection to the minutes. We're recording now, so it is documented.
Yes.
all right,
So that's all I have for the work session.
okay. All right, let's proceed to the regular general call the meeting to order, if we can.
The clerk's getting the sign-up sheet, so she'll bring
Okay.
those to you.
I'm going to I'm going to call the meeting to order as soon as we get a chance, when she brings the sign-up sheet, and I've got Jim Heffern's going to do the invocation, and Martha Stowe's going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Appreciate that. All right. Okay. In any case, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. All right. Jim, want to do our invocation, please?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come and gather together today and ask that you bless this meeting. We pray that this meeting be full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals today. We especially remember the victims of the recent tragedies in El Paso and Dayton, and we pray for the healing of their families and loved ones. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a recognition here. Let me climb out of here, Martha.
Thank you.
Get by. Here we go. Hey, Jack. How you doing? Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. All right. City of Belmont becomes the 90th bee city USA in the nation. We're top 100. That's pretty good. We have a thing we're going to read off on the Belmont
Mayor, before you read that, you want to invite the Environmental Sustainability Board up and accept it?
Let me get you all, come on up here.
And staff to the board.
Ready?
Hold your sign.
No, yeah. I didn't see that. Good. All right. Belmont City Council unanimously voted on July 1st, 2019 to become a Bee City USA, joining more than 100 other cities and campuses across the country, united in improving their landscapes for pollinators. You know, it's very important to have the bees too, extremely important. The council's action is a culmination of months of effort by Belmont's Environmental Sustainability Board and the city staff to accomplish this certification. Bee City USA's mission is to galvanize communities to sustain pollinators by providing them with healthy habitat, rich in a variety of native plants and free of insecticides. Pollinators like bumblebees, sweat bees, mason bees, honeybees, butterflies, moths, beetles, flies, hummingbirds, and many others are responsible for the reproduction of almost 90% of the world's flowering plant species and 1 in every 3 bites of food we consume. Each affiliate should hold a public awareness activities, publicly acknowledge the commitment to the program through a standing committee, signage and web links, and prepare an annual report on habitat enhancement activities. The city has designated the Environmental Sustainability Board as the facilitating committee for Belmont's efforts to engage the community in promoting pollinator conservation, and the City Council thanks them for their service to our community. So we thank you. I think we need to give them a big hand for getting That means that we actually are a tree city and a bee city. So that's pretty good, isn't it? Not bad, not bad. Okay, thank you so much for all your service.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. But that's great.
We can leave that right there.
Yeah, we can leave it here if you want to take it. Just don't forget to take it with you, okay? All right, very good. Thank you. All right. We got several people signed up for public comment, but we need a motion. I know we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Very good. Consent agenda is approved. Let's move on to the adoption of the public. Yeah.
Opposed.
We have one person opposed. Okay. So it's 4-1. Okay. Let's move on to the regular agenda. We have 4 people signed up for public comment. The rules are you have the hourglass, 3 minutes, okay? And when you come up here, state your name and your address and what your case is that you're going to talk about, okay? First person we have signed up is Gloria Lewis. Gloria?
First of all, I'm not a speaker, so I'm going to read mine since I only have 3 minutes. And I've got more than one. I've got 5 things I'd like to say, if that's okay.
Sure.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Okay, excuse me. My name is Gloria Lewis. I live at 218 Lakeview Drive, Belmont. So when do we have a clock that would go by, or I just get started? Okay. Okay, well, turn it up.
Modern, we've already turned it over.
Oh, okay. First of all, I want to talk about traffic lights, and I know you don't want to hear this, but Julia Avenue has got to have traffic lights at both ends. If they can't get it at both ends, We need one over on South Main because those high school kids are going to get killed or they're going to get hurt. They are trying to make left turns, they're trying to make right turns. Parents coming back from the school from taking their children are trying to get out, they can't get out. Now, I don't know if y'all come that way in the morning times, but you should. You should see what's going on with the traffic lights. And when you're going to tell me we're not going to be able to, I just want you to try to get us some traffic lights on Julia Avenue. We've got the stop signs and the flags and the police sitting there and everything else on Julia, but we need a traffic light so we can get out, don't we, Mr. Page?
That is correct.
Okay, this is the next thing I want to say. The mayor and 4 council people promised us that you would have controlled growth, and your controlled growth has exploded. I mean exploded to where every piece of land that's got a little bit of dirt on it, you sell and you build. That's one reason we can't get out, because we still got the Milltown roads. The roads when the mills were here are still here. Only thing is Keener Boulevard and R.L. Stowe. That's the only roads that's been in Belmont. We still got them, and they were put here in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and we still got them. And so that's one thing. Now the next thing is the little red box downtown. I don't know what that's for. And I think if you paid $72,000 for it, we could have done a lot of our road improvement. You sit here and you listen, but you never hear nothing about roads. You hear, what can we do? I worked for the city 7 years, and I worked in Parks and Rec, and I know how things work. But if you'd have put the money that you had to pay the $75,000 or $72,000 out on our roads like Lakeview, where I live, I think, Jack, it was in 1960 we got some pavement. It was in the 60s that we got pavement.
60s.
Yeah, in the 60s. That's how long it's been since we've had any attention. And Julia, it's so bad that when we go out into South Point, our cars turn sideways. It's like going over a curb. Now, the little box, I don't know what it was for. Don't do that yet. With the little box, it was, if it was made to tell people going downtown where things are, they don't have to go but a block and a half.
Yeah.
And if they get lost, they got telephones to get them back.
Yeah.
And that's the third thing.
Thank you. Your time is up, huh?
Thank you.
Well, I'll give it to somebody else to
Thank you.
read.
Okay. All right,
No, I'll put it in the paper.
okay. Next person we have signed up to speak is Kent Hod. Ken, you got 3 minutes, state your name and address.
Ken Hyde, 16 West Myrtle Street. Tonight I come to you on behalf of South Point High School as the athletic director. Just wanted to personally invite you, council, city manager, city staff. We got a great opportunity for not only South Point High School, but the city of Belmont, and that is the Patriotism Bowl. The Carolinas Freedom Foundation, which is based out of Charlotte over here, is a nonprofit that raises money for veterans groups such as Purple Heart Homes, the USO, etc. So this will be the 8th annual Patriotism Bowl that we're going to be hosting in our game on September 6th down here at South Point High School. Both teams are going to come out in camouflage jerseys. Both bands are going to play the national anthem. Both ROTCs are going to present the 50 state flags. The big 50-foot by 80-foot flag over here at Gander Mountain is going to be spread out on the field by veterans. We've got a helicopter that will be coming in to present the game ball. We've got some old paratroopers from the Special Forces Association down at Fort Bragg are going to parachute into the stadium with American flag. It's just a big deal. So this is your formal invitation. They're going to have a VIP tent set up, a catered event set up down in the far end down there. We expect a big crowd. So great opportunity, not just for South Point High School, but showcase City of Belmont, and this is your invitation.
That's great. What's the date on that again, Ken?
September 6th.
September 6th. Okay.
Gates will open at 5:30. The pregame festivities will begin at 7, and then the kickoff will be at 7:30.
Who's playing?
Sir?
Who are the teams who you're being involved?
South Point playing Clover.
South Point Clover.
South Point.
Great. All right.
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Kent on that?
Sounds good.
All right. I think we'll be there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, next signed up, we have Chris Beck, 502 Julia Avenue. Chris?
Thank you, sir. I'm Chris Beck at 502 Julia. I'm reading this because I wrote it earlier. I want to thank the city council and especially Richard Turner for stopping on the day that somebody went through my yard and ditch. I would like to thank David Eisenhower and the city workers for putting up the stop signs and getting the Julia Avenue striped and the rumble strips installed. Okay. I would like to especially thank the Belmont Police Chief, Mr. Hawkins, and his staff for all that they've been doing to try to slow the traffic down. And as a street and community of Belmont, Julia Avenue is coming racetrack. It really has. When all the other people coming in, with new people coming from up north and other places because they want to live here in Belmont. Yeah, but the stop signs have helped people, and it's really helped the people who live near the stop signs. You know, the rumble strips have been helped out because the dump trucks are not coming through. They don't want to stop down there at the bottom. Okay, and that means that the water leaks and stuff that's have been repaired or not having to be repaired. There were 72 to 73 people that signed the petition that I brought to the city council. All right, and if you'll notice on the petition, there was a K out there. That was the people that had children that they can't play in their own front yard. You know, okay? But anyway, let me see, slow down. And they're really tired of all the traffic that's coming through there. It's not really just the traffic, it's the speed that's coming through. Yeah, okay? But the rumble strips are needed on each end. That will help slow it down on both ends. And if you'll go all the way across the roads, that'll slow each side as you're going and coming. Yeah, but anyway, it's not that, like I said, we want people not to come through. It's just that we want them to respect our road and the city of Belmont, you know. And if they put rumble strips down, they would not hurt EMS, the fire department, or any other medical people that come through. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris, too, for your attentiveness on this issue right here. I have a granddaughter, a grandson, with my great-grandson lives down there, and he's about that age where he can run out into the road right there.
Exactly.
So very important that you
Can I ask a question?
stand up for that.
I know we've been back and forth on a lot of these things for the last few months specifically. Do you feel like the chiefs address your concerns in a reasonable fashion? And
We know that this is not going to be a down and right cut, okay? People here, but they are very happy with what has been going on. I've spoken to other people that live near the stop signs, and they're happy with the stop sign there, okay? The three-way, okay? Right there, all right? Now, the thing about it is, you know, we just need a little bit more of what we've got. And I'm not complaining about what we got. I'm very happy, you know, about it. And me and the chief have discussed more rumble strips, and the new sign came out today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Next signed up to speak is Elizabeth Atterbury.
What did somebody say? Oh, Lord.
Elizabeth Atterbury, 403 North Main Street, Belmont, in case y'all don't know who I am. I'm not here to complain tonight. You proud of me? All right, I'm here to invite you for $15 a person. You can attend the Belmont Historical Society's annual silent auction and dinner on August the 24th at First Methodist Church on South Point Road at 6 p.m. Dinner by Giorgio's, great items, good food, great fellowship. It's our annual fundraiser, and we're totally nonprofit, as you know, run by volunteers, and we have lots of expenses. with 3 different buildings. This past year, we spent over $15,000 on new handicap ramp, new floors, new walls in our main museum. This coming year, we need to paint it. If anybody wants to get, no, I'm sorry, Ron, you're too high for you on a ladder. But anyway, we will be having, it's always something with our building. One of our founders is sitting here. I'd like to recognize Jack Page. And anyway, just invited you to come. Anybody needs a ticket, see me after the meeting. I have them available.
What's the date, Elizabeth?
August the 24th.
August 24th.
And we're moving the site to First Methodist.
All
And
right.
James Flowers also has tickets.
What time?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
We take cash, checkbook, and we're even in the 21st century with credit cards.
You take coins.
We take coins.
Okay.
I even will take an IOU because I guarantee you I can find you. Right, Shelley?
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right. That's all the folks we had signed up on the consent agenda. That moves us on to public hearing on zoning text amendment, a request to amend chapters 10 and 2 of the Land Development Code to allow for a halo-lit, backlit sign illumination within downtown Belmont. And I don't have anybody signed up to speak on that, so, Shelley?
Motion.
Make a motion to go into public hearing? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are in public hearing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As read into the record, this is Text Amendment 2019-03. This is a request to amend Chapters 2 and 10 of Belmont's Land Development Code. Now, the purpose for this amendment is to allow internally illuminated signs within our downtown district. We're specifically targeting property zone downtown district or neighborhood center commercial. Now, this amendment of Chapter 2 will address the definitions, and Chapter 10 is specifically the sign ordinance. We're proposing to allow reverse lit channel letter signs. We're trying to clean up some of the terminology. They're often referred to as backlit or halo lit. They're all the same sign, a reverse lit channel letter sign. While we're in Chapter 10, we're also trying to just clean up some of the language in the regulations in that section. So a little bit of background on this amendment. Internally illuminated signs are currently prohibited in the city's downtown area. And again, those are property zone, neighborhood center, commercial, and the downtown district. So that means all our business owners are to have external lighting on their signs. This is the only business district in the city that prohibits internally illuminated signs. The ordinance prohibits it in what we call the Center City Master Plan, identified in our Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Now, if you look around downtown or at some historic pictures, there have been periods when internally illuminated signs were allowed in Belmont. There's a few around town that you'll see are still operational, and I looked at some historic pictures, and I believe the Belk was an illuminated sign as well. We've had many business owners, new business owners, come into the planning department trying to get permitted these illuminated signs, and we've had to deny them. So I'd like to go over what internally illuminated signs can look like, and then we'll focus on this amendment. So these type of signs come in various forms. They come in cabinet styles, like the upper left, where it's just what we call a can sign. Lighting is internal with panels on the side, or they just slide into a frame and the entire sign lights up. The picture to the right is what they call internally illuminated channel letters, where the lighting illumination comes out the front and sides of the signs, the lower left. That is called an open face channel letter with a neon neon insert. And the subject of tonight's amendment is the sign type in the lower right. This is called a reverse lit channel letter sign.
So you're not recommending the other three?
We are not. Now, these reverse channel letter signs are often referred to, and they're actually very expensive because they're custom made. They come across with a very soft, elegant, and sophisticated illumination. So the way they're designed, the front and sides are typically made out of metal. And the lighting is typically LED that illuminates out the back. So the two examples below, you can see there's no illumination coming out of the front of the letters. It's just backlit, and that's why they call it halo-lit, backlit type of signs. And you can introduce color into these types of signs. So the Planning and Zoning Board heard this request at their July public meeting, and it did come before them with the support of the Main Street Advisory Board. They met with some of the business owners and sent up a recommendation. It was approved to recommend approval to the Planning Board. After a brief discussion at the Planning Board, the Planning and Zoning Board voted to recommend approval and did make the required findings. They found that this amendment promotes goal number 4 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan under community character by allowing flexibility in sign illumination for the business community while protecting and enhancing the character of downtown Belmont. They also found that it was a reasonable request in the public interest because it supports the business community while considering the potential illumination and aesthetics of the historic downtown area. So with that, we ask that you receive the Planning Board's transmittal to approve as presented and take public comment and, of course, render a decision, and you'll have to make the required findings as well. I look at you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Yes. Be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, I do have a question. So, someone brought to my attention today that's a business owner downtown. Do we want to beef this up a little bit more about the signs, like don't change colors or don't flash behind it? And
We do have restrictions already in the sign ordinance that does not allow flashing or kind of a raceway type of lighting because it's distracting to motorists. So there's
Yes.
something already in the ordinance under prohibited signs.
and covers changing colors, like my pool, goes from red to green to blue, and
Well, there's nothing that would prohibit it from changing colors.
Would that not be distracting?
As long as it didn't look like, we could make that finding.
it
If
just-
you'd like us to add that, we certainly could.
I think
that
it needs.
they-
I
they
believe
need
it needs
to
to be a
be
stable color and a stable
aesthetic.
I think it needs
sign.
to be as
Worded.
boring as possible to a certain degree. So
Well, we
no
can-
flashing, can we standardize the colors at all?
It depends how
Yeah,
much you
but then
drink.
you're really kind of taking away from an identity of a business. There's no way to capture all. I think to say that needs to be a static color, so it can't change colors. But most businesses with logos are branded, and they pay a lot of money for the color branding.
Right.
Like Google
Yeah,
is an example.
I don't have a
And
problem with
and
the
it
Google
is
sign.
actually, it's hard to tell here, but it is very soft lighting. And
My biggest thing on this would be that if one of the letters gets burnt out, it has to be fixed right away. The image mark printing in Gas City has been burnt out for 11 years. It just has INTs, the only 3 letters lit. And that's such a quick fix, but I notice it every night. I drive over there.
Is that something we can enforce?
I mean,
yeah, there is.
like,
There's a
if you're gonna have
maintenance
lit signs, it should have to be
requirement
lit.
already in the ordinance where you're supposed to maintain your
We put a lot of
signs.
restrictions, Ryan, you remember, talking about nits, and there is a lot of restrictions on lights. But let me ask you, was the planning board endorsement unanimous? What was the vote?
It was unanimous, yes.
Was
it
unanimous? Let me ask you, what caught my ear is you said this came forward as a text amendment from the Main Street Board?
No, it came with their support.
Came with their
Staff
support.
had
We don't want to look
initiated
like the Las
it.
Vegas Strip.
But the Main Street staff was aware we were working on it, and they had heard from some of the business owners that they were interested in having internally illuminated signs.
Which,
So
I mean, are
they
you at liberty
met
to
with
say which businesses are pushing for this?
Well, there's been multiple, but right now, we have a new brewery coming in town, Jekyll and Hyde. They
Yeah.
had turned in plans, and we had to share with them again, no, we don't allow internally illuminated. Nellie's, when they came in, they wanted the halo lit on the Nellie's, and we had to tell them, no, they have external lighting. So there's been multiple businesses over time.
So this would allow them to do that then, as far
Yeah,
as
it
putting up
opens the
reflective
door
light back
for
there? Yeah, as
soft
long as they
light.
don't change colors and stuff like that, like Las Vegas and stuff, I think it'll be
But
pretty
they're
nice.
expensive.
They are
It's-
very
It's
expensive.
gonna be just a handful of folks probably.
Yeah. All right,
So if you want static
I would
color,
suggest
yes,
I think so.
we say
Yeah.
static.
Replace
I
the
think so, too.
burnt-out lights.
maybe add that to-
Add that to your
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah.
Proper maintenance?
Proper maintenance, that's good
All
word.
right. Anybody have any other questions for Shelley? All right, that being the case, there's no one signed up for public hearing on that. So we want to make a motion to come out of public hearing.
Motion.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we're out of public hearing. Let's go into agenda item 3, which is consider the adoption of an ordinance approving zoning text amendment, a request to amend chapters 10 and 2 of the Land Development Code to allow for halo-lit, backlit sign illumination within the downtown district.
I'll make a motion we approve with the addition of static in the information.
Got a motion to approve? Got a
And the
second?
proper maintenance.
And proper maintenance.
She already said that was already in
It was
there.
already in there.
Yeah, that's already in
Okay.
the ordinance.
Yeah. All right, all in favor, say aye.
We need a second.
I'll second it. I'll
I had a
Ron
second.
seconded, okay.
Did you second that?
Right.
Oh, Ron seconded, okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? All right, motion carries.
And then I make a motion that this is consistent with the text amendment that promotes goal number 4, community character of the Belmont Comprehensive Land Use Plan by allowing flexibility in sign illumination for the business community while protecting and enhancing the character of downtown Belmont. And it is a reasonable request in the public interest because it supports the business community while considering the potential illumination and aesthetics of the historic downtown area.
I'll second it.
All right. Thank
All
you.
in favor?
All those in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. Let's move on to the next item.
Do that when you're gone, dude.
Item number 4, presentation of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, you authorized a contract with Wolfert to do an update to our Parks and Rec Master Plan, which ran from 2003 to 2013, and so it's time to update that. So we've got Carl
Armanini. Yeah, it's
Sorry,
always fun,
I'm
huh?
guessing. It's tough. So Carl is here to present the findings and recommendations of the Parks and Rec Master Plan. Just go down to the next area.
As you heard, my name's Carl Armanini. I'm with Wolbert. You guys hired us about 7 months ago, and we've been working with Parks and Recreation staff and city staff members on updating the Parks and Recreation plan that was done back in 2008. With that, I'm going to try to go as fast as we can to highlight what's been achieved through the plan and why, and the process, and the recommendations. One, why are we doing this? Well, first of all, we want to make sure that we use our resources wisely, we protect open space, we attract people to come to Belmont, as we heard tonight, and the quality of life improvements that come along with that. We go through a 5-step process, which is common to a lot of planning endeavors. We need to find out who we are, we need to find out what we have to find out what we need, and then we have to find out what we're going to do, and then how to do it. So it's pretty straightforward in these 5 steps. In doing that, we spend a lot of time in what is considered, what is it we need in the needs assessment. And in doing so, we reached out and we used focus groups. There was a survey available from about end of January, 1st of February, all the way through May. There were public input meetings and workshop, and then a standards review, and we worked with an advisory committee and staff members on that to come up with recommendations. One of the things that was kind of a consensus through this outreach is a discussion about providing connectivity within the area, which means greenways, walking trails, etc. There was lots of discussion about a recreation center, splash or swim facility. We need to take care of what we have in place. Let's get better river access for the public. And then, last but not least, there was discussion about a dog park. In the recommendations, we go about establishing roles for providers in the area. And to discuss Belmont's role, the most important thing we would say is that you're going to be concentrating on providing neighborhood parks, community parks, and even mini parks. But even most importantly, you may see special facilities. And special facilities may include anything from a recreation center, greenway trails, maybe a sports park, when it's usually similar to what you have at GAN. And that's where your role, I guess, as a provider will be. In doing that, we also discussed how you interact with those around you, how Gaston County might fit in, the federal and state government, other towns and municipalities, and the quasi and private sector. And we've discussed in the plan how you all work together to provide recreation and development. And just to go over the facility, parks and facilities side, there are recommendations in the plan that deal with a hierarchy of service, from large parks that we would know as regional parks, 1,000-acre parks, to mini parks, the small things that might be a seating area on Main Street. In looking at that, the recommendations that we have is, well, we don't see Belmont really working in the regional park arena. They may have a special facility that might have that draw. However, the existing state parks and facilities around here provide service for the community. The next type of park, as we move from large acreage to smaller acreage, would be a district park. And if you're familiar with that, that'd be something that the county typically provides. Those are parks that are about 200, sometimes even 400 acres. Have a lot of passive recreation items, which would be trails and picnic facilities, maybe even nature exhibits and things like that. Once again, that's something that Belmont may have at some time or incorporate in one of their community parks as a program for maybe a nature program. But right now, district parks are being well provided through Gaston County to the citizens over on this part of the county. So now let's hit what Belmont is really looking at working on. That would be community parks. Community parks are those that are somewhere in the order from sometimes 50 to 60 acres to as much as 200 acres. Many times they have active recreation in them, and sports fields is probably the best way to put that, with accommodations for passive recreations, which would be connecting trails, picnicking, maybe a lake, etc. In terms of recommendations, the community still needs, Belmont still needs a community park. Didn't want to be too redundant there and say a community needs a community, but, and we've identified that in the southern area of the city. I guess the easiest thing I would say is heading towards South Point. And in that, there is also some city property, the Gator property or land, that right now is going to be very difficult to develop in terms of using for sporting events or fields. It may be easier for that to be developed as a passive or more passive community park, maybe where camps or something, and that can be held by the Parks and Rec Department later. With that, the other thing is Gaither right now may be developed later as utilities start to extend that way. It'll be easier for it to be developed at that problem. When it comes to neighborhood parks, we've identified 2 locations for neighborhood parks, new neighborhood parks. Basically, we've identified one, 7 Oaks, which is the McLean property, already has been investigated by you.
Right.
That's one of the things that we notice in working with staff in that, is that there's a lot of support that they give one another. And it was really good when we'll see when we get into some of the numbers that you probably saw, is that a lot of the recommendations that were being made were already identified in your CIP, your 5-year program. That's hats off to both staff and leadership. The other neighborhood park is going to be developed with along the South Fork River, and it was identified in a planning effort for the South Fork area. And then the last are mini parks. Mini parks, we're not really making a recommendation for purchasing site, is to work with either through the development process on obtaining those facilities, or working with Main Street merchants, property you already have, such as utility easements that might lead access to trails, things like that, to provide seating areas, or it might even be as much as a horseshoe pit for a neighbor. When it came to special facilities, you heard later that there was a lot of discussion about greenway connections and trails. In fact, number 1 throughout the survey was the development of walkways, connection points, not only to parks, but to downtown, and then eventually to use areas such as the university or the college. In the recommendation, we talk about making sure we move ahead and move forward with the Abbey Creek Greenway, move forward with phase 1 and phase 2 of the trail plans. Also, there's a multimodal trail or walkway that's being developed with NCDOT for along Wilkinson. And then you have the luxury of having been identified as kind of a go-through town for the Carolina Thread Trail, which really will connect you with not only towns to the east, west, and north, since that trail identifies going through Belmont as one of the key areas for greenway trails. All that is also, how do we get people from park to park? How do we connect them from park to park or from downtown to a park? And we're hoping that the city's pedestrian plan and getting as many walkways improved as possible help to attain that goal. So another item that came up as a special facility is the recreation center. I think you're all familiar with that. There was a separate study that was done for the recreation center, and within the survey and with our focus groups and interviews, it's still a hot commodity, and it is a recommendation, and we identified a location to be at the property where the new city hall is being located across from Now, more central.
Just to clarify, we're not relocating City Hall, are we?
Just city offices.
City offices, thank you. Thank you. That's city offices. I should have said.
I just don't want to have to answer that question.
No. Yes, the offices are moving, and I know Park and Rec is looking to go there also. Yes, if you can find an affordable site more centrally located in downtown, it might work better for servicing the entire city. The Ford Center will need improvements, and we identified that a study be made into how to proceed with improvements and how it might be used. The next thing was to talk about a pool and a splash pad and a dog park. The splash pad in that has been identified and space was allocated within Laughlin Park a few years ago. However, if this recreation center is to be located across the street, it may make sense to co-locate it with that recreation center. The dog park went through a couple changes in recommendations because citizens spoke up. There was a discussion about using property near the city waterworks off of Catawba, back by 10th, and that's the recommendation we would make, is to use that property. It has an area for shade and so forth and seating and parking. There was discussion throughout the plan about arts education and how we might be able to entertain art into parks and recreation and facilities. The recommendation that we brought forward is to how do we use the colleges to help you with that. And then water access, there were Blue Ridge Trail that is on the Catawba and also on the South Fork, and we've identified locations for access points beyond just what is already provided. And then what I had alluded to earlier was how well you did with the CIP, because I think there are over 20 projects that are identified here as facility improvements programs that deal with individual parks, maybe adding on a shelter, doing enhancement in Stowe, for instance. But there are over 20 projects that were identified in your 5-year CIP, which at first, you think that makes it easy on a consultant. The other way, or a flip of that is, what is it that we brought to you? And once again, hats off to staff, because the support and camaraderie and everything that we saw is that they work well together, they listen well together, and they plan well together. So all of those projects that we just went through, those 20 projects for facility improvements that were many, and new parks, could be summarized into a big ticket number over the 10-year planning period of around $26.7 million. Of that, most of those have already been identified through your 5-year CIP, approximately 24 or 25. So you can see you've already dug in, if you will, and started that planning process by going through the CIP. A nice colorful spreadsheet, just to say that's how we started and where we ended up. In the action plan, we make recommendations on how are we going to fund this? Where are we going to get the money? One of the things that you heard tonight was about whether general fund allocations, obligation bonds, and I know is something that you've used, whether there might be a limited option or special tax. And you're using some of those, predominantly you're using general fund and straight loans or an obligation bond, I know, for the previous recs. We reviewed some staff with the addition of a recreation center is where most of that staff is. We identified really 3 new positions that don't fit within positions already identified under Parks and Rec, such as a supervisor or a rec specialist. So, and those 3 are a recreation superintendent, who at the end of this planning period will have more facilities to help the director administer. A recreation center administrative assistant who will help out with a recreation supervisor, who's a new position also. And then a new position completely new was a marketing and fundraising or grants coordinator person to help assist find resources to fund some of the recreation proposals. This is just a quick shot to show that structure. The dashed items are showing the new positions. Also in the implementation plan, we talked about operating budgets, what the proposals might bring to them, what it might cost to run a facility, such as a recreation center or a splash pool, and what the potential revenue coming back from that type of facility might be to help pay for that. To give you an idea, in the past few years, the department has averaged between 20 and 25% in return on the overall budget, and that was around $125,000 annually, which is actually pretty good when you compare it to other programs throughout North Carolina and even in the nation. But as you move forward, you have a few more facilities. That revenue plan is going to need even further combination of sources. And in doing so, that combination may come down to looking at general tax revenues, bonds, et cetera, et cetera. We also talked about alternative funding mechanisms like creating a parks foundation, how the hospitality tax is used for recreation, or can be used in North Carolina for recreation. Whether or not there's a grant person who's going and pursuing grants, but also looking for other funding from foundations, whether they be private foundations or their own foundation. And with that, I know the last slide is really to show you the plan proposals, and those large reddish pink circles are how Community Park Service is provided. The smaller purple circles are how Neighborhood Park Service is provided. And there's a huge green swipe at the bottom that is really showing how District Park Service covers the city. And with that, I guess I'll leave it to questions.
I have a couple of comments and a question. I'm really pleased to see how much greenway emphasis you're showing, because that's been something I think is very important. I've been involved in Gaston County. I took note that you had a skater park location, which we've changed what that would be and as far as where it should be. My concern is that I don't know where it fits in the categories, because if we're going to secure grants, it needs to be listed, because as I understand it, one of the reasons you do this is if it's in your master plan, then you can work at securing grants. So where would that fit in the category?
As a special item.
Okay.
We have the money for that,
I think
too.
we just left it as a CIP item within there.
As long as we're there, because we have $50,000 that the city obligated in 2005. And Adrian, how much more in donations?
About $2,600 in donations.
$2,600 from other individuals in
Yeah.
the church. Okay, and that's fine, as long as it's fitting in there, that's perfectly good with me. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Anybody have any other questions for Carl?
Yeah, you identified a need, I guess, on the South Point Peninsula for a park in the future, and I don't think you're recommending Gaither. I think that leaves us with maybe 10 acres that we have available in, what's that development?
The McLean property.
McLean property. We have 10 acres there. Is that a suitable site?
Not for a community park. We've recommended that site as a neighborhood facility, and as actually a trailhead site to get.
Okay. That's right, okay.
Yes. The Gaither site can operate as a community park. I think it's going to be a more passive park, and I think the alternative to that is how do we work with maybe schools to work on the active part of providing community recreation.
Macy, what did you make of North Belmont? Because I noted you in here, you were talking about
Okay.
Linford Park and the gazebo.
Yeah.
I'm pretty familiar with the gazebo. That was my son's Eagle project. But I did note when we were up there, because we were looking at doing something in Linford Park, that there was no playground equipment up there.
And that's, I believe,
It's
one of
being,
the items.
it's being addressed, yeah. But let me ask you, as far as field use, are we lacking in having field use up there for the kids, for soccer or
Well,
baseball?
Right now, I think from the city's provision, yes. From what the county helps to do with not only the North Belmont school side, but the park that Gaston County is providing, there is active play fields in that area.
Well, but they're a good distance, I guess that's what I'm
Right.
getting at. They need something in the more immediate community area.
Neighborhood
Which is
facility
lacking.
north is needed, yes.
We had talked about land behind Davis Park too, possibly making a ball field back there a few years ago. Parks and Rec did, I can't remember how many acres were back there, Adrian, you remember?
I don't know offhand, but yeah, that is something that they talked about several years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, there's at least 10 acres, I think, isn't it?
I don't know offhand.
Okay. But that would be a good place for a baseball field too. Add that. Yeah, behind Davis Park.
Well, I think we've got some baseball fields here in the central part of Belmont. I think what we need to look, I'm looking, from your report, I'm seeing the South Point Peninsula and North Belmont is probably having some facility needs.
Right now, lacking neighborhood facility, yes.
Anybody have any other questions for
I
Carl?
just have some comments. I'm not prepared to support this evening. It's obviously a lot of work went into it. It looks great. I received it last week, read it, went through and made my notes. I'm not sure if everybody had enough time to read it and make their notes, but if this is going to outline the next 10 years of Parks and Rec, I'd hate to do it and then have somebody from the Parks and Rec Board show up and say that something was misconstrued. And so I don't know if it might make sense to have a combination meeting to make sure that this is what we want to do. I saw some things pop up as far as turf fields that kind of got escalated up. I saw multi-use fields that was about a $7 million price tag. And so there's just some pretty big moving parts in there that I think we ought to shake out before we go ahead and adopt the plan. The other thing is, we've discussed as a board how we wanted to move forward with funding Parks and Rec projects, and we already supported an increase in taxes. So a lot of these options that we've already vetted out as far as obligation bonds, we've already kind of said that we weren't going to do. We've kind of carved out the budget, which fits into this. At least I think it looks good, but I would think that we should get together with the Parks and Rec Board, since there's nothing on here that's pressing this month. Make sure everybody's been heard, everybody's comfortable with it, the timeline looks good, the funding mechanism looks good. We're targeting the right areas with the right equipment, and however that goes forward. But I'd like to read it at least one more time before voting on it personally. If you guys feel comfortable, let me know. But
To be honest with you, that's a good point. I did read it. There's a lot to cover here. I'm not sure I absorbed everything to the level that I should, so I don't have any objection to your
it's
proposal.
a short timeline for me, so.
I would agree.
Is there any additional information that you would like to have prior to
Yeah.
meetings, or just more time to digest the current information?
I think it may be a special meeting with Parks and Rec and kind of just walk through it in a little greater detail and make sure that we're all on the same page, understanding what the full scope is. And
Yeah, I'd like to hear comments, maybe written would be more efficient from Zip, regarding what your thoughts are of the report. Shelley, as far as connectivity and how the planning board works into that. Adrian, how you see the budget working into that. This is a pretty robust $30 million plan, as we saw, and so seeing as the other departments kind of feed into this would be helpful for you. I don't know if you all had time to read it. I can't imagine that you did, but if you received it, you can see how robust it is. So it'd be good if the staff department heads would have some time to kind of weigh in on how it fits. I know we've seen some land use plans and some efficiency studies come in without the feedback from our department heads, so I think that would be good to get that.
So basically what
As
you're
well.
saying, Ryan, is that we need to have a special meeting between Parks and Rec and the council.
Yeah, and get some
And go
feedback
over some
from
of the
department heads
details on
on the
that.
report. That's what I think's most realistic, logical, and
yeah, rough number says that if this is a 10-year plan at almost $30 million, that's like 20% of our budget that's going to this. So we just need to make sure that that's exactly what we want.
where,
Yeah.
And there's nothing pressing with adopting this plan, so,
No.
delaying it by a month or two is not going to, as far as I know, Zip, there's nothing that you're applying for that needs an adopted plan right now. Okay, so,
I would agree.
Madam Chair, if it's okay to schedule a joint meeting with your board?
We'll do whatever we need to do.
have you had the plan for a long time?
Well, we've been studying it for the last, since we started, and, yeah, it's been a long time in the making. It is a robust plan, but from the history of our comprehensive plan, it may be more than 10 years before this gets addressed again. So pushing for what we can push and let this be a tool to go out and get funding and grants and see what opportunities are out there, absolutely. So, of course, we want the support of the council, but if I can say this, as the chairman, I just want to thank Carl and his company and everything that they've done,
Sure.
and ZIP, and the Parks and Recreation staff, and the board, Emily and Dan, and they both are here.
Yeah.
And it has been a big commitment, and I'm very proud of this piece of information that we can use for the future of Belmont and what you guys see the vision as well for Parks and Recreation and the improvements that we can make. So I'm excited, happy to sit down and talk to you guys about it.
All right. Well, that's the case, then let's go ahead and have a suggestion that we,
Motion to table, is that appropriate?
On the next agenda.
So let's do that at the next item, which is a resolution adopting it.
all right, no one's speaking on this issue right here, so let's move
Are
to...
there any other questions for Carl?
I don't have any.
Yeah. That moves us on to item 5. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate all the hard work you've done in that program too. City manager recommends the council approve the resolution, but we are talking about postponing it to a special meeting with the Parks and Rec Commission as well as the council. So we got to set a date for that.
So if that's okay with the council, I'll ask the clerk to try to coordinate schedules with the city council and the Parks and Recreation Board. And would you want the consultant there as well? Or
I mean, I think his work will speak for itself, but I mean, it's up to you all.
Yeah.
I don't think we need them.
No, I don't think we need them.
probably outside of his scope.
All right. Well, that being the case, let's go ahead and postpone it until we'll find a date to do it. Jim, if you
Can we go
find a
ahead and
date for
approve it at that date, or should we do the, okay.
Certainly, we can advertise that meeting as a discussion, and then we'll
Okay.
move this agenda item to that meeting.
All right. That'll move us on. There was nobody signed up for public input on that meeting either, so we'll just go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 6. Consider the approval of a fall street paving program.
The next item is consider approval of the 2019 fall paving program, and your city engineer, Jerry Haddon, has provided information for you in your packet. I wanted to take this time to just kind of give you an update of the various paving projects that you've done over the last several years. We've been doing this pavement condition survey since at least 2008, and maybe earlier than that. The 2018 pavement condition survey document shows that the average pavement condition rating, which is an objective criteria based on what it says, the condition of the pavement on every street in Belmont, every city street in Belmont, is an 81.6. That's from 0 to 100, with 0 being the worst street possible to 100 being a brand new street, freshly paved. So that's slightly higher than the municipal average around the state that the consultant does. And the percentage of streets in town that need some level of routine maintenance or resurfacing is 42% in Belmont, which is slightly less than the municipal average. So our streets used to be in terrible shape. Now they're in about average shape for North Carolina community. And you may recall seeing this graph in some of the previous discussions about pavement. And it's sort of intuitive that if you can address maintenance issues sooner rather than later, it's a lot cheaper. And if you wait till the street's falling apart, it costs a lot more money to put it back together. So our goal is to get it on the front end of this graph and not at the tail end of it where it's really expensive. But you remember, so we've been doing small paving projects pretty much every year, not exactly every year, but pretty much every year for the last 10 years. The 2008 study that we did showed 26 sections of street with a pavement condition rating of 0, 23 from 1 to 10. That actually got a little bit worse in 2013. There was a recession. We didn't do as much work during the recession. And then you remember in 2016 you authorized a $1 million paving project that took our pavement condition survey and said let's do as many as we can.
Right.
Our goal was to get all the streets that had a rating of 0 to 10. We were able to get it from 0 to 20 because we had some really good pricing with that project. So Jerry did a great job administering that and adding some sections to that to make sure that we spent the $1 million on that. So you see the result of that is that the 2018 pavement condition survey just had one section of street, and that was the end of Limestone Drive. There was a 0. And the reason that was left on there was because there was the development project going on, and we wanted to wait till that was finished before resurfacing.
Right.
And you authorized us to partner with the developer to finish that, and they have finished that now. So now we have 0 streets with the rating of 0.
Yeah.
We only had 2 sections with the 1 to 10, 6 from 11 to 20, and 7 from 21 to 30. So you can see the conditions of our streets are getting better because of the programs that y'all are funding. So I will turn it over to, I just wanted to give you some context as to this and let you know that we are tracking this, and there is a method behind which sections of street that Jerry has recommended paving each year that you're funding, and it's based on an objective need. It's not based on location or anything like that. It's the condition of the street.
Could I make one comment or one request? I know with our social media person and you, I'm sure we're going to hear more similar to what our angry constituent had to say something. And I did not know that until I was on council about how that's done. So if you guys would think about whether on the website or Facebook we could put something to indicate to people what happens, because even on my own street, it was paved in '80, I thought there was a problem, but not this, not what this is. So people need, I guess, a little bit of education so that they're familiar with it. They're still not going to be happy, but whatever you guys think is appropriate with that. But thanks. Okay, sorry, you're up.
And so I'll turn it over to Jerry to go over his recommendations for the 2019 paving program.
As Adrian said, our goal has been to get all the streets in 20 or lower done. We have done that. So this year we said, well, let's make it 30 or lower. And with this program, this year we will take care of all the streets that have a rating of 30 or less, which is pretty darn good.
So the initial goal was 20 or less, that's
Yes.
been achieved. The second goal is 30 or less, and these dollars will address that.
Yeah, again, for the last several years, our goal has been, let's get the worst streets done first.
Yeah.
Regardless of the number of houses on that street, whether it's a dead end, whether it has connectivity with anything else. And so we did, and it's a very objective determination of what streets are available. And I've recommended 10, which pretty much clear the map. If you look at the map that's in your agenda package, you can see the streets are spread out all over the city, so representative of a lot of people. And the important thing is by using the condition rating, we are taking care of some streets that are cul-de-sacs with 2 or 3 houses on it, that these people previously probably would never expect anybody to come down their street and pave it. And I can tell you the last several years as we've paved these streets, we'll be out there marking them and be paved and stuff. Some neighbor on one of these dead-end streets will come out and say, what are you doing? We'll say, we're going to pave your street. And that's like the best thing that's ever happened to them in their life. And you would agree, from a property value standpoint, it kind of enhances property if you have a good street in front of it. So, the 10 streets that are on the list this year are sections of North Street, South Ridge Drive, Dogwood Lane, Walton Street, Sterling Street, Fuller Street, Pebble Creek Drive, Short Street, Crossing Avenue, and Palm Lane. So these are all in there. And if you look at my memo list, you see that the terminus of many of these streets is dead end or cul-de-sac. So that is the fact.
We'll save money on Short Street, won't we, Jerry?
Huh?
No, I'm just kidding. We'll save money on Short Street.
We'll cut it short. These are all sorts of different locations. And Adrian gave me a budget of $250,000. I went out, walked all these streets and measured the lengths and so on. My current estimate is $272,000 on this. I think, as we've done in the past, we'll include a clause in the bid documents saying the city's got 250, that's what we're going to spend, we have to drop out of street hill. But in the past, we find that we get very competitive bids. We have a lot of paving contractors that like the size of this job and like working with Belmont, and we get very good bids. I expect that we'll have that here. The numbers Adrian gave you is also contained in this chart in your agenda, and it's a good one to refer to. As of our fall paving program last year, we had only 8 streets left that were under 30. And with this, we'll get that cleaned up. We'll have those streets under 30, which is pretty good. Told you, you've got the map, and you can see these streets are all over the place. If you give us the authorization to proceed, have bid documents available and send those out to some of our contractors that have paved the town over the years, that are reliable, and come back, have a bid opening by the end of August. I'm asking for approval from the council so I don't have to come back for an award. And then we'll get started in September and hopefully have this all wrapped up by middle of November.
That'd be great.
It's a good time. This is the time to go.
Yeah.
The weather's.
It's been good, yeah. Yeah.
So, looking at that, I think that's my recommendation. I will say, next year I will come back with a different style recommendation because since we got the 30 worst streets done, several years ago we used to use a multiple objective type of rating so that streets with a lot of traffic got higher ratings, streets with that are through streets got higher ratings. If they're commercial areas, retail areas, they got higher ratings. And we used that to do a lot of the streets around downtown, Glenway and others. So we'll be looking, there are some streets, we heard about Julia, that first block off South Main Street, or not South Main, Central. That did not get paved when we had the last paving job out there. That's one that probably still needs to be paved. And there's other ones that are high-profile streets that I think we need to look at for the next time. But for now, I want to get rid of all the dirty. I think we accomplished what we need. So
Thank you for your
requesting that you give me the authority to bid and award based on price up to $250,000.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the city engineer to proceed with the bid process.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thank you, Jerry, for all your hard work on that. I appreciate that. We want to get those roads paved then, huh? Next item on the agenda is consider the approval of an agreement for an IT management service provider.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll introduce, I don't know that you presented yet, introduce Seth Norkett, our new IT services coordinator, previously in our utility billing department. We are in the last few months of a 5-year agreement with VC3 to do our IT managed services, and with Seth coming on and Seth's background with IT, I've asked him to sit in with me on some of the contract negotiation talks, because he can speak the language of the IT providers much better than I can. So that has been very enlightening and very helpful so far. And looking at some of the changes in technology, I've asked Seth to interview some additional companies and to provide a recommendation on how to proceed with our IT managed services moving forward. So I will turn it over to Seth.
All right. I'll go ahead and jump right into it here.
Do you need me to work your presentation for you?
You know what, if you want to. So this first slide here, I just wanted to showcase the 3 companies that we're going to be looking at. First is going to be VC3, which is our current provider. And second is going to be a company out of Charlotte called Sterling Technology. And then third is going to be a company based out of Cornelius called Apex. And this is just to show the different services that they provide and give you an idea of the quality of service that we're going to get moving forward. You'll notice almost all of these have the same exact services that are available, except Apex surprisingly does beat the other 2 in 2 categories. And that's going to be the standards and best practices reviews and the future technology planning. So that's something that would be nice to have moving forward. What that is we will have a representative that would come in and kind of sit down with us and take a look at the way that we're operating, the way we're doing things, and provide advice on how to move forward with that. The future technology planning, that's somebody that would basically work with me moving forward to help make sure that our technology stays up to date and we don't get behind, because that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Excuse me. With a lot of our older software that we have in place, we're trying to get caught up and move forward kind of into the new age instead of the dark ages. So this is VC3. They're based out of Columbia, South Carolina, founded in 1994, and we're going to be looking at a cloud-based infrastructure. What a cloud-based infrastructure is all of our information, our documents, everything that we see when we log into our computers currently is not housed here. It's somewhere up in the cloud in a sense. So it's on their servers that are based at a different location. And initially, when we had this type of infrastructure, it was what was best for the city that would work moving forward. But now, with the different software providers that we have, I do think that we're going to see an option later on in the presentation that's going to be a better fit instead of going completely in the cloud, because the cloud is very expensive to maintain. And this is just an overview of the individual prices that we see. The two biggest things I want you to take a look at here is the total upfront cost to continue with VC3, and then also the monthly cost moving forward.
Okay.
And this is going to show the one-time charges moving forward with VC3. It will be a one-time charge of $1,240. That would be for some additional hardware that we'd be getting. And then the monthly payment, because of our switch to needing some laptops instead of desktops, the cost is going to go up with VC3. So we would be looking at a monthly payment of somewhere around $12,300 or so. So we have the first year total cost and then the subsequent yearly cost after that. And next up is going to be Sterling. They're based out of Charlotte, and this is for a cloud-based infrastructure as well, which is the same thing that we have in place. Total upfront cost for them to essentially onboard us and to bring all of our information from VC3 over to them, we'll be looking at an upfront cost of around $30,000 or so, but then a monthly cost of $10,106 over the span of the contract. And that's just to showcase that information. You've got your upfront cost, your monthly payments, first year total cost, and then the subsequent yearly cost after that. And the last company that we're going to look at is Apex, which is based out of Cornelius. And we have a cloud infrastructure that we're going to look at, but also a hybrid, which is something that when I was speaking with Apex, they brought up as a means for us to potentially save some money, and I agreed as well it might be a better fit for the city. And we'll take a look at that here in just a moment. So going with the cloud infrastructure, there is a one-time charge on here. I neglected to put that, but there's a one-time charge for onboarding for the cloud infrastructure. And this was just assuming we would just move everything over from VC3 to them. Their one-time charge would be, I think it was roughly around $5,000 or so, but then we would have a $12,526 payment per month after that. And there's the one-time charge that I was referencing. And first year total cost and subsequent yearly cost after that. Now this is the hybrid infrastructure. There's going to be a lot more that goes into place for this because we'll have to purchase some equipment. But when I say purchase, the only thing we will actually own is going to be our domain servers and our storage servers. The actual computers, laptops, desktops, all of that will be on potentially a lease, which is what I'm going to recommend. That way every 3 years we'll be able to get new hardware moving forward.
Okay.
You'll see the total cost of this portion, if we did it without a lease, is going to be $81,000 or so. That's what we would have to pay up front. Now, if we lease that out into a 36-month lease, which is something that they will allow, and I put 0% interest on here, but there's actually a good chance we can get a negative interest if we do a fair market value lease, which is where we would turn the, equipment back over to them at the end of the lease. And this would be the second portion of that. Total upfront cost there would be around $11,000 or so. But this is to showcase how much we would have to pay up front with a lease and without a lease, and then the monthly payment with and without a lease. So without the lease, we're looking at a total upfront cost of around $86,000 or so, monthly payment of $6,223. And the first year total cost would run us somewhere around $161,000, and then the subsequent years after that would be $74,676. And this is with the lease option. Much lower up front, a little bit higher monthly payment, and then the first year total cost would be significantly less, and then the subsequent yearly cost would be more moving forward. This is just to showcase the pricing that we went over with the different companies, the potential savings. I did a 0 for VC3 because we stand to save no money if we stay with them. And then Apex, for their cloud infrastructure, we would save no money as well. It would actually end up being a little bit more expensive. Sterling, we would save somewhere around $50,000 or so. This is over a 36-month term, so $50,000 over 36 months, that's what we would save. If we go with the hybrid technology with Apex, we stand to save somewhere around $133,000 or so over a 36-month term. So my personal final recommendation would be the hybrid option with Apex for a 36-month term to save the city money, and also I think it would be more effective moving forward to make sure that we do get that new hardware every 3 years or so.
As a city, we won't be sacrificing anything if we use Apex, but at the same time, do you know anybody that has experience using the Apex hybrid?
I've reached out to several companies they provided. Several of those companies were larger than us.
Are they satisfied?
They were very happy. Their response times, they said, were great. But also, one of the interesting things that we found out is one of the partner members for Apex actually lives here in Belmont, Jared Gibson. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. So he would be invested on another level because, of course, he's going to want to provide good service to the city where he lives. So I think that's a benefit as well.
Okay.
Anything you wish they did that they don't do?
Compared to VC3, I would say no. I seem pretty happy with what they offer. We've had some issues with VC3 here lately. One of the things that we had, just I believe this was about a month or so ago, Adrian couldn't get logged in, all of our department heads couldn't get logged in. I submitted tickets, Adrian submitted tickets. Took them almost a full week to actually fully resolve that issue. So for a full week, multiple times a day, our department heads are getting kicked off and they can't proceed with their work. And then when we spoke with VC3 about that in a meeting, they informed us that we did not use our wording correctly in the tickets, which we were supposed to tell them it needed to be escalated, that they shouldn't have to be able to determine that themselves. So.
Adrian, a question for you. You obviously have gone over this with Seth, and you obviously are supporting his recommendation. Can you tell us why?
Yes, sir. So when I first started here, we owned all of our own equipment, owned our servers, and everything was housed here, and we had a company that came in and serviced that. That was hard to budget for because, and of course this was 10 years ago, and the hardware was a lot more expensive. And everything was based on what you had on your desktop. That changed to more of the cloud-based infrastructure. It was a lot easier to budget for. I remember the city manager at the time didn't want to own all the hardware because you never know when it's going to die. It's an inventory nightmare. So this way we didn't own any of it. And so going with VC3 was a good move back then. As software has advanced and we brought these different solutions to you for approval over the last couple of years, they're all housed on their own servers. And so there's really not a need for us to pay for cloud storage and cloud service and cloud maintenance. It's almost getting to where they're like apps on your phone. You know, they're stored off-site, and all you need to know is that your phone works. So, so really, we're overpaying for the service that we need the way we're doing it now, and frankly, the quality of the customer service is declining. So we've been with it for 5 years, and I think we're ready for a change. So looking at this hybrid option, I think it's a good way for us to very inexpensively to lease the equipment, and 3 years is pretty good for robust using of laptops and desktops. So I still don't want to own all this equipment. So by leasing it, we're not owning it. Every 3 years we turn it in and get brand new stuff with higher processing speed. So I think we'll get better equipment. We will get better service, particularly because they are more local. And of course, it's great that it's going to save us money. We budgeted, I think, $132,000 this year for our IT services. So this comes in less than that, and certainly will come in less over the next 2 subsequent years if you approve the contract. So the good news is that it won't be a dramatic change for our employees, the end users of the system. It'll look pretty similar to what they're used to now. We think they'll get better customer service when something does go wrong. But we think it's going to be a better solution, and certainly it's going to be cheaper for us.
Well, Seth, let me ask you a question. Touch back on the hybrid. Okay, so it's cloud-based partially, and we'll have servers on site here?
So with a hybrid technology, what we would have is, and we'll decide where to place this, but we would have a storage server and a domain server. The domain server is what would allow us to log into our desktops essentially from a remote location if needed.
Okay.
So employees would still be able to do that from home, even though the need for that has gone away because a lot of our software now is cloud-based. So as long as they have access to an internet connection and a web browser, they can log into what they need already. But that's what the domain server is for. This actual storage server we would house on-site, but our information would not be primarily stored here. That's just kind of a halfway point. So during the day, we would have backups that would take place to the storage server.
Okay.
After that, those are going to be moved to essentially a fail-safe backup, which is going to be on a different region of the United States. That way, if there's ever a complete region loss on the East Coast, most of the time they're going to put it in Texas for where we're located. So all our information would still be secure on a remote server in Texas. But we're also going to look into utilizing OneDrive, which we already have access to and we're paying for, and also SharePoint. So we'll have multiple copies of our information stored in the cloud on the server that we have here, and then also on their servers that they have in Texas.
We're required to keep certain things on file for extended periods of time. Will that be cheaper to keep it here versus a third party?
One of the costs that we ran into that kept fluctuating with VC3 is because of their virtual storage, which is their cloud storage. At one point, we were only getting about a terabyte of data, which is not very much nowadays, but we were paying over $1,000 a month for that. So this would be a much more cost-effective option if we could have kind of a halfway point where we store some of it and then have actual hardware servers stored somewhere else that have a RAID array, so that if there is a failure there, our information will still be safe.
Good work, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
So Adrian, what I'm hearing is you feel like it's a much better system, we're in a better situation with this, and it's also a cost savings.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he knows what he's talking about.
He does. He knows.
I don't have to talk a whole lot on these calls anymore.
He is a guru.
Yeah.
All right, do we hear a motion?
I'd make a motion, we accept the recommendation of the city manager.
I'll second it.
I got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. Motion carries. Very good, Seth. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the signal box vinyl art wrap agenda memo.
So I'm stepping in for Phil, our downtown director, to give you an update on an important project in downtown. So a major focus of the Main Street program is to identify opportunities for public art in our downtown area. The Main Street Design Committee has been working on a public art project to wrap signal and utility boxes within the downtown area. A call to artists was issued soliciting their designs, and we received over almost 50 submittals of different artwork. And you may have seen this this booth at the Red, White, and Belmont celebration. The design committee set up a booth to solicit the public's input on the various artists' work for the different districts. So they have also had a survey poll that was out, pushed out on social media through the Survey Monkey, and they have brought the designs to the Main Street Board at their July meeting, and the Main Street Board has supported the recommendation for the artwork based on all the input, and I'm going to present this to you now. So the historic downtown area, so in the Main Street District we have 3 areas. The historic downtown, the theme of the artist was rail. So this, there are 4 sites. This is a signal box at Main and Todd. This is the signal box, and we did a signal box at Main and Woodrow. Right here in front of City Hall at Main and Catawba. This is the last one in the district at Main and Myrtle. The next district is the Chronicle District. The theme for the artist was innovation. There are 2 sites. This is at the corner of Catawba and Glenway. And the next is at Catawba and Park. Then the last district of the Main Street program is River District, and the theme was water. Here is the first box at Brady Field. And then the second box there, Brady Field. So, with that, the Downtown Belmont Development Association, or the DVDA, which is the 501c3 arm of our Main Street program, is paying for the cost of this public art project. The project cost includes the production and installation of the art wraps on the various boxes, as well as paying the artists for the selected artists for their work. The installation of the artwork should start in a couple of weeks. We're still waiting to get the final approval from NCDOT and AT&T. They wanted to approve each piece of artwork on a specific box, so we're waiting on that. The project total is about $7,500. And again, that's at no cost to the city. After the completion of the installation of the artwork, the city will be able to develop a city public art walking tour on the city's Belmont Go app that we currently have the historic walk program on there. So that's my update.
I just got to ask you a question.
Yes.
What is that thing supposed to be on North Main Street in Todd? I can't figure that out.
That's the eye of the beholder.
I know what the river
I
district
think they're
is.
beautiful, and you can
There's a
see
fish
the
in there,
fish.
yeah.
The fish
Yeah.
was easy, yeah.
All right.
But no, they're very pretty and colorful.
I have a question, Shelley, just for general information, and I didn't realize we weren't going to have Phil here because I called him this morning. Is there a possibility, or is it the intersection of Keener and Central, which is a fairly substantially used intersection? We have a huge box there, and it's on the right of way, but it's on Stowe Manor, at the edge of Stowe Manor. Is there a possibility of us, at our cost or somebody's cost, that we get donations to do that same type of thing, or how does that work?
With the approval, the utility companies, or NCDOT, I imagine that's for the signal there, by NCDOT, they have a program that allows that. They just want to approve the artwork. So that's outside the district of the downtown, but again, the program's statewide. It can be done anywhere. It can be done on our gateways.
Yeah, to me, that is a gateway, so that's the only,
Yeah.
consideration. Okay, great, thanks.
So did you say that, who paid for this? You say DVDA paid for this?
The DVDA is paying for this project. That's correct, $7,500.
All right. Very good.
So they're working for final approval with the encroachment agreements from NCDOT. I believe you've got the approval from AT&T.
Yes.
So there's no action that you need to take, so the city's not paying for it. We're just letting you know what's going on for when you get questions about why we have art on signal boxes downtown.
Thank you, Shelley. I can identify the fish in the Bradyfield district right there. Yeah, that's good. All right. Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
Next item is the update on the Julia Avenue speeding issue. Chief?
Thank you. I'll start. David Eisenhower's on vacation this week, so he is not over. He has given me the information. When the council voted to authorize traffic calming measures on Julia Avenue, I think at the special meeting in June, you asked us to come back to you with periodic monthly updates on the activities that staff has taken and the amount of money that we've spent. I believe you authorized over $25,000 for traffic calming measures. And then you wanted a report at the September meeting on the impact of the efforts taken to date because school starts at the end of August. So we wanted to have data before school started and data after school started. So I will let you know what we've done so far, and then I'll turn it over to Chief Hawkins to talk about the efforts that his department has taken and the results that he's received so far. If you've driven on Julia Avenue in the last 2 months, you've noticed a lot of activity out there. We've installed the first digital speed sign there that's on the picture on the left, and then I believe you said you installed the second one today. So we have one on each approach, eastbound and westbound Julia. Julia Avenue is an old NCDOT street that used to have nice yellow stripes down the middle to identify the lanes, and that has been faded over the years. So David got our striping contractor to restripe those solid yellow lines down the center to further identify where you're supposed to be on the roadway. And probably the most dramatic change has been the installation of a three-way stop at the intersection of Hugh Street. Anytime we put a new stop sign in, we do these orange flags to let people know, hey, this is new, this is different, you're not used to seeing this, so please look at it. We installed some warning signs, stop sign ahead. We didn't want this to surprise people. And then, so we painted the stop bars as well. We also, in the center picture, you can see these warning rumble strips leading up to the stop signs on Julia, each side of Julia at the approach to Hugh Street, so that people would feel it before they get to the stop sign. And so if you're going too fast, you need to be aware that the stop sign is coming. So our expenditures, and I believe I've sent this to you already, but it's in the packet. We spent just under $15,000 total. That also includes a new Duke Energy LED brighter street light at the intersection of Julia and Hugh. That was kind of a dark spot, and we were concerned about having stop signs at night. They are reflective, but nonetheless we wanted people to be able to see it as they're approaching until they get too close to it in the evening. So you can see the breakdown of the traffic calming expenditures to date. And this was primarily in July. So any questions on what we've done before I turn over to the chief to explain how it's working?
Could you leave that, go back to that
Yes,
slide there? Something significant about the signs, I know that may seem like a significant amount for signs for one street, but those signs actually can be moved to any street. The signs also they're not just to show you how fast you're going to slow down, they actually collect real data for us. Whether, even if you don't see it lit up, it's collecting data constantly. So that is a benefit to us. That's an officer I don't have to set out there to manually do that. So that is a benefit, and they can be moved around. So I wanted to make that clear. Something else, we're not here to give a final report, we just wanted to give an update. We know that school's going to be starting back, and we really want to get the data from that. Also, the sign is going to change. We're watching some behavior change. So the sign coming from South Point towards Hugh Street should have some significant impacts. But just a couple of things that we looked at is the radar sign. As you know, it's coming from Main Street. And from July 4th to July 31st, we had a total of 26,518 vehicles. And the average speed is 25 miles per hour. 85% of the vehicles traveled at 32 miles per hour or slower. Although that's not 25, it's significantly different and lower than it was. And so Mr. Beck and I spent a lot of time together in his yard talking about these things. And only 1.3% of the vehicles exceed the speed limit by 10 miles an hour or more. So what we're looking at here is progress of moving in the right direction. Another study, that was for the radar sign, and then we have the stealth sign. That's the thing where we hang on a post somewhere, and it actually is not it doesn't show you how fast you're going, it's secretly getting your information. So, and it actually gets vehicles going in both directions, as where the speed limit sign only gets you coming towards there. So, and this is just a data collection instrument. So from July 31st to August 2nd, we just wanted to get a quick glimpse of that data. And this area was in the 200 block. So total of 5,223 vehicles, and the average speed was 25 miles per hour, 26 miles per hour. 85% of the vehicles were 31 miles per hour or slower. Again, progress. Only 3.2% of the vehicles exceed the speed limit by 10 miles per hour or more. And the next slide looks really busy, but there was a purpose in that, because we wanted a good sampling of all the different times of vehicles traveling up and down Julia Avenue. As you can see, not to go through all the times and everything, but if you look over the traffic volume, just to show you, out of 54 cars during that time frame, the average speed was 28 miles per hour. The next one, 43. all the way down to 140 vehicles, and at 544 vehicles total, and the average speed was about 28 miles per hour. Now, that was with an officer being hidden with the LiDAR unit, which is our laser that shoots. So we've used all kind of technology and looked at this in so many ways, and we're not where we're at to make a final decision on anything. This is just some good data for us to have to make decisions on what we're doing. We do think that what's been done so far is effective, but we know that's not the end of it. There's some other things we need to do. We're real curious. When school starts back, I've heard some commentary about the stop signs, but I can tell you that the people who live there, I've heard from, who appreciate it. It has been safe, and I'm being told about all these collisions that was going to occur within 2 hours of putting them up. There may be 5 out there right now, but to this point there have been 0. Find some wood to knock on that. Are we going to have collisions? Absolutely. It's an intersection. We would be foolish to think that we would not. Just like we know that vehicles are going to speed.
Yeah.
And I was told that, well, when school starts back, these kids, they can't handle an intersection. They're going to run into each other. I was told that. I would think we have more confidence in our children than that's driving, that we put in a motor vehicle and pay insurance for. So that's up to us as parents to educate them. But we're also, another piece of this before school starts back, is we really push, and with the schools and everybody, to please notify them of the traffic changes, via phone trees. We're really pushing this out. We're having a back to school bash right before school as well, and we're going to push this out, and the importance of not speeding and drinking and driving and wearing your seatbelt. So we're really trying to educate our youth drivers to be safe. So a lot of people think that the youth is the problem with speeding, and they're not. We have a lot of adults that do their fair share of speeding on that road. So our goal was not to, when we started this endeavor, it was not to install speed humps. It was to reduce the speed of vehicles.
Right.
So a lot of people have asked me, well, why didn't you just put speed humps? I said, well, our goal, we may get there, but that was not the goal. The goal was to reduce speed. So by those means, that we took those proper steps to try to get there. So we want to be responsible. And, for every person we make happy, we make 10 more not happy. The people who are not really happy, the people who travel through there like to speed or like to get somewhere fast. I do know that. And I've heard from those engineers, those citizens. So.
It's necessary for us to request a traffic study on both ends, because I certainly can attest to the fact that it's tough getting out on from Julia Avenue on to Upper Armstrong, because I traveled out from January through May. So can we do that, or what's necessary?
So we would need to get NCDOT to do a traffic signal warrant analysis at both of those intersections.
Could we do that?
We can request one.
Yeah, so
yes, I think that'd be
the councils, I can request that.
Anybody can request one.
Sure.
Because I think that would really facilitate people getting out there, like you said, more.
Yeah, so I can let
Thank
the division office know that the city council is requesting that.
I think that's important.
I think another comment about, there have been some discussion about the rumble strips and how they're damaging your car. Well, if you're doing the speed limit and you slow down for that sign that says stop sign ahead, your car will not be damaged. Now, if you cross that at 50 miles per hour, your car may be damaged. But if you're going a reasonable speed, your car will not be damaged. So I know that was an issue too. People said their cars would be damaged. So we're just trying to slow the vehicles down, help the residents of that community, and we're going to continue that, work together with the residents there.
I appreciate everything you did. You're never going to have everybody satisfied, because I got calls from people when all that stuff happened and stuff too. But
this has been a team effort, and after
I know.
so many years, you understand that.
Most of the comments have been favorable. That's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Next, we have our board reports.
Thank you. We've got the minutes from the July 18th Downtown Belmont Development Association meeting, and we put in the financial report that was presented to that board in July, as well as, now that the Friday Night Love concert series is over, on page 171, you
and light rail to make sure that our land use plans, zoning match up to take advantage of the economic development opportunities that transit affords. The goal is to have a consultant on board by the end of October, and City of Charlotte is the lead agent on that grant. The Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO is also doing a request for proposals for consulting services for a feasibility study on the Catawba Crossings project. As you'll recall, NCDOT told both Gaston and Charlotte MPOs the last round of spot, I think 5.0, when they did not score the Catawba Crossings project. They said we need to do a feasibility study first to determine if there's a need for that project. This would be the river crossing from New Hope Road to 485 and West Boulevard on the south side of the airport. So hopefully work will get started on that project in November, and the City of Gastonia and the MPO will be the lead agent on that feasibility study. And then
Where's the meeting going to be on that, Adrian?
there will be several meetings on that. They're mainly staff level meetings with the potential consultants. The Charlotte City Council will award the consultant for the TOD study, and City of Gastonia City Council will award the consultant for the Catawba Crossings. But I'll let you know when those meetings are available. I mentioned to you that Shelley and I went to a meeting last Friday on the Wilson Bridge replacement project, which is scheduled for construction in 2022. We were looking at what's called betterments. DOT will build a standard DOT highway bridge, but if we want to make it nicer, make it a signature gateway bridge, there's an additional cost to the local governments that are involved. Councilman Turner asked me to provide some information as to kind of what our share would be. As I understand it from the MPO, there's really no hard and fast rule on who pays what on this when it's multi-jurisdictional. But the MPO's process so far, when you have a project that has local matches or betterments that crosses multiple jurisdictions, is you kind of look at the percentage of the project that's in each jurisdiction, and then you allocate the cost proportionate to the amount of project that's in that jurisdiction. So for this project, it touches the Belmont city limits, unincorporated Gaston County, and unincorporated Mecklenburg County. So those would be the three local funding parties for that. We are the smallest, so there are some betterment costs that are based on population. Since we're under 50,000, since we're between 10 and 50,000 in population, our cost is 30%. So Gaston and Mecklenburg obviously is a lot higher because they're over 100,000. So we don't know what that percentage is going to be at this time. We don't know what that cost is going to be at this time. We've had some preliminary numbers. We'll know more hopefully by the end of the year on that. So I will provide that information as I get it from NCDOT. And finally, since Judy's here, I want to thank Keep Belmont Beautiful with Judy and Susan and their Flower Power teams. I don't know if you've seen them out on Main Street, but they're doing a great job taking care of our flower beds.
Susan needs to hear that.
And really stepping up and donating some nice things to help keep litter and cigarette butts off the sidewalks. So if you want to say anything about your efforts so far, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, it's all right. We're going to be donating a bench that's going to be on Main Street. We've already, I think, I've been out of town, we should have been putting up cigarette containers for cigarette butts in different places downtown. And we are donating 2 pet stations. I know they've been put up. So, yes, we spent some money for you.
Yes, we appreciate all of our volunteers and friends that keep Belmont beautiful. So thank you, Judy.
Thanks, Judy.
That's all that I have. Thank you.
All right. All right, let's open it up for other business. We'll start with you, Ron.
No, the only thing I would say about the Parks Master Study is that I think we all agree it's just a framework from which we work. You know, I think that's the important thing of it, is it's a framework from which we work and make decisions. So I appreciate the person presenting tonight, but that's the way I view it. And I think it's the right thing to do the actions that we're doing in reference to it.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Ron. Martha?
I have two things. I will not be at the September meeting because I applied to the Aviation Academy, and so I'll be there representing the city rather than here, so I'm excited about that. I asked my husband if I'm going to get to be a pilot. He said he does not think so.
The Aviation Academy?
The other thing is, I normally do not look at the Belmont News Network. My husband is my social media monitor, but he told me several weeks ago while we were on vacation that I should look at it. We continue to have incorrect information out there, so the more you guys out there can take note of that to tell people, because you're here and know what's going on. Thank you, Doug, for trying to correct the information that was wrong, and Adrian as well. I unfortunately saw that you were chewed up, or whatever the appropriate term would be, and the person who chewed you up is one of my former students, Adrian, so I will at least at some point say there's a better way to address the situation. But I finally figured out what the value of the Belmont News Network is. If we do, the state limits how much we can control growth, but if the Belmont News Network continues to put out the information about how terrible we are and how terrible the city is, that will control growth because people will not want to come here. So I finally figured out what the value is. But that's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. All right, so you had three things. That all three?
And that was the second. All of that
Oh, okay.
was one.
All right. Doug?
I rarely contribute anything to this section, but I am today. Kind of concurring with what Martha's comments are. Property owners have rights to develop their property, and for some reason, some people don't think they do. And we can't control some of that. We have significantly tightened a lot of our zoning in the last several years. So I think we've done our job of making sure we're putting smart growth together. But growth is going to happen. If there's a vacant lot and someone wants to develop it and they do it within our zoning, they can do it. There's a big difference between state and city roads. And every time I drive by downtown, I went by at 3 o'clock, I came back here at 6:30, someone was at the kiosk looking at information on the kiosk. 0.5% of our city budget went to that. Whoop-de-doo.
I've seen people there too.
Yeah. So as I said, perhaps Cherryville, Bessemer City, Kings Mountain may be a better attractive place for some of our citizens. If they're not interested in a progressive town, Belmont's a thriving, growing town, and I think we've done a great job of helping it be a great small town.
Thank you, Doug. Richard?
Yeah, just a nod to David Eisenhower. Where I live on Dogwood Lane, it backs up to Seacrest Extension. And there had been folks back there that put out items for the bulk item pickup, mattresses and whatnot, with the expectation that they would be picked up. And it occurred to me a couple of days ago that stuff had been sitting out there for a while. So I called David and I said, bulk item is passed, has it not? And I told him what was going on, but long story short, in a couple of hours he had Waste Pro out there and picked up, it was a sizable amount of goods. But, he did know that Waste Pro seems to have a habit of missing some of the streets that are off the beaten path. So maybe that's something we need to talk with them about and get them to make sure they're covering all the streets in Belmont. I was going to bring up the funding, the MPO. Martha was at the MPO meeting as well and heard this about the transfer of money from construction of the greenway to relocation of the utilities. And as I shared with Adrian, I've got some concerns about it because I looked at a map and I talked to, I'll put a call on to Randy Gates. Looking at the map, it looks like this might be a recurring problem with relocating these utilities. And I'm looking at about a $2 million cost. All of that has to be done before we can actually be in construction on that line. So she's going to look at the map and either confirm or dispel how I read that. But, you're right. One step has to proceed before the other. But also, for everyone's knowledge, we're going to be put into a pool on the bike ped projects to where we are going to have to compete for this money. While we do have this money now, there's no guarantee going forward that as we compete for this small percentage of money, because the percentage is very small of the DOT funding for highway projects. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we would get it, but Randy said, apply for everything.
easier to check it out. But I didn't bring it up because I figured it's not all that much happening until school gets back in session. But no, we're facing that. I think we could go ahead and look at that. Getting ready to kickstart, what's it called? Go Month, October, which is the Gas and Outside Marketing Month. So that's an ongoing, we're, I think, in our 4th year of this marketing campaign. So Gaston County as a whole has had a very damaging economic reputation over the years, just based on historic information. And so this organization that started off as a private group started to work with public, so different municipalities in the county, to raise money to rebrand the county, in the hopes of growing the tax base so that we could dissipate some of the tax burden away from the residents and put more of it on cities and grow the economy to pay for the goods and services that we need. So it's been successful thus far. One of the things that we're doing in the month of October this year is you're going to hear from the different municipalities promoting the other municipalities from their perspective. So one of the things I wanted to do is just celebrate some of the things they're working on in Gastonia. First of all, I toured the Esquire Hotel, which is getting ready to open up. That's the old lawyers building in downtown, right on Main Street in Gastonia. It's absolutely gorgeous with marble floors when you walk in. It's going to be a restaurant and then hotel rooms up above. The brick building across the street where they used to produce horror movies. Those are going to be turned into hotels as well. It seems like the Pocket Park, which was heavily scrutinized, they're going to convert that into apartments, but it's gaining support from pretty much the entire community at this point because of all the vacant buildings in downtown Gastonia. A lot of those business owners are waiting for more foot traffic and population to come in. The Fed is a new restaurant. It's going to be in an old bank building. So the guy who owns Web Street Custom Kitchen, which is a phenomenal restaurant, is going to be spearheading that project as well. And then if you've read, somebody's interested in developing a little property right around the East Ridge Mall of the tunes of over $100 million. And so certainly those are the results of things that you would hope. You can never take a marketing campaign and connect the dots, but certainly all positive things can contribute to it. So I hope that the success that we're having in downtown, we can continue to keep that positive because the positivity contributes to the success, and the negativity, what we're seeing now is actually harming us to a large degree as we're working towards 100% occupancy all the time. But if you haven't heard from the Main Street director in a while, the bank is looking to be occupied, the general store is looking to be occupied, and so when your goal is 100% occupancy, you're constantly working because there's always going to be turnover. But there's a group who are constantly focused on driving that goal. And then the second goal for the Main Street Department was to have 10,000 square feet of new retail space in downtown Belmont, and we'll be close to that goal with the addition of the station next to the bicycle shop. So it seems like we're moving in the right direction, trying to keep things positive, and certainly want to celebrate Gastonia for all the things that they're working on, and that didn't even include the ballpark they're trying to pull off. Just wild to me. But
well, it's the trickle-down effect. We start out in Belmont with some restaurants and stuff like that, and I think that's going to continue to flow. So yes, and we get that Fuse District done, that's going to be nice.
The mayor at Cherville told me about 10 years ago, he said, what's good for Cherville is good for Belmont, what's good for Belmont is good for Cherville. And I think that's a good attitude across the county.
All right, thank you, Ryan.
If you would indulge me, I forgot to mention one thing.
Sure.
Okay. I was coming down Woodrow heading towards South Main, and I saw a very near collision, somebody trying to turn right from Woodrow to South Main. We've had people talk about the row of bushes that you can't see there, and I'm sure his vision was obscured. But when I saw that, it occurred to me that we had talked, since it's a city street, about putting up a no right turn sign there on red, no right turn on red. And I don't know whatever came of that. I saw there was no sign. I don't recall there's any discussion on it. I may have missed it, but I didn't know if that was still an active topic or something that we could look into.
I don't recall those discussions, but we can certainly look at that and bring it to the Public Works Committee.
Well, he was wanting us to have the homeowner tear down all those bushes. The guy came and spoke to it repeatedly that he couldn't see. And
You mean Central Avenue?
What did I say?
South Main.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, apologize. Central.
Yes, that I do recall.
Okay, so there was a near collision there.
Okay.
The person, I could see them, they were continually trying to creep out to look, and when they made their move, they obviously didn't see this car, and he had good brakes, so there was no collision, but it did ring a bell that we had talked about a no right turn on red sign there, and I think that issue sort of dropped, but we may want to revisit it.
What would be the possibilities of having a stop sign, or stoplight rather, with a turn arrow at that intersection?
That would be up to
Justify
NCDOT. They would have to do an analysis.
There's a lot of traffic comes down Central Avenue.
Yes, that's an NCDOT maintained intersection and traffic signals, so they would have to do that analysis.
Yeah, I think that would be worth doing that because, like I say, like he says, it's going to be a dangerous situation if somebody pulls out there.
Because Woodrow is a city street, is that our prerogative to put a no right turn on red, or would we have to get the DOT involved?
I'm not sure. I can find out though.
Okay.
All right, very good. Okay, guys. Do we have a motion to I'm sorry, Chief, got your police report.
Invite National Night Out tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. So far, free food and fun for the family. Please come out and join us.
Free food?
I'll second.
Got a motion to adjourn, got a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. All right.
Hey, Jim.
Richard didn't say no.
Okay, I'm in.
You should. Do you want to take blood pressure medication? Me neither. My husband is actually here. Like, and I said, just tell me something. I don't want to say, and there's a whole string of stuff on my neck. So that's why. It doesn't,
One, I think it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, so I'm going to have to spend my day. I'm not driving back at
this is
midnight.
just bizarre, so. Papa?